My guest for today is a seasoned Danish business development consultant and a trainer. He holds a master's degree in economics and has over 20 years of experience in management consultancy, private sector development, and monitoring and evaluation. He has worked for the private sector enterprises for the development partners, including Danida, EU and USAID, focusing on SME development, private sector enabling environments, trade promotion and capacity building of business organizations. His competence covers all phases of the project cycle, from program design, planning, management and implementation to monitoring and evaluation. He has worked for 7 years as a business consultant for the Federation of Danish Industries. As a leader, he has solid experience in the implementation of the international assignments in Africa, Asia, and Russia. Throughout his career, he has also worked as a program director and quality assurance manager on several international projects, offering business development services to private sector organizations in India, Vietnam, East and West Africa. His involvement in the Ghanaian business environment dates back to 1995, when he embarked on the number of short-term business missions to assist in building the capacity of various Ghanaian private sector organizations and promoting cooperation between Ghana businesses and their Danish counterparts. So it's time for me to introduce my guest to you. My guest is in the person of Mr. Nicholas Gebara. He happens to be the fund manager of BUSAC Fund. Hello and welcome to CEO's Chair.
Hello.
Kindly have a seat. It's a privilege having you on this seat.
Same here, same here.
So let's talk about BUSAC. For the purpose of this particular program, we're going to have it in two folds. One will focus on your institution, and then the other would be on you. The part I love the most, actually. But let's talk about BUSAC. A lot more people might have heard of BUSAC, but someone will be wondering, is it a profit-oriented business? What exactly is BUSAC into? If you can just give us a brief idea on that.
Yes, I mean, BUSAC is a business advocacy challenge fund. It's a fund that has been established by the donor community, primarily Danida, who saw there was a gap in the dialogue between government of Ghana and the Ghanaian private sector. We've been into establishment since 2004. So we're a program. And what we have been doing is we've been supporting private sector associations in articulating advocacy issues to government to ease up the business environment of their members. Okay. So throughout, we have been now throughout two phases. The first phase, we had like 362 projects that have been approved. Many of them have led to concrete results. In phase two, we got more focus on national issues. Because we believe that this will trickle down on a wider number of SME enterprises. We had about 435 projects, approximately $20 million spent in terms of support to business associations. And now we're into the third phase, the third and final phase of the BUSAC Fund, which means that our focus will have to be on sustainability, the sustainability of advocacy, the sustainability in terms of the dialogue between government and the private sector, the Ghanaian private sector.
So let's talk about looking at the various phases that you've had so far. What would be your assessment in terms of the economic impact that BUSAC Fund has made on the Ghanaian economy?
We've had a lot of impact on the economy and on the advocacy as such. In the first phase, I think the need started from the fact that private sector was very shy in terms of articulating its needs for having a better business environment to government. So we sensitized a lot the private sector associations into articulating and working on evidence in terms of putting evidence to government as what the needs are, what the effects, the negative or positive effects of policies could be on their members. That was the first phase. We've been doing a lot of training of private sector associations. We also trained public servants at district levels into understanding what it takes to do business advocacy in a constructive way. In the second phase, we have been consolidating on national issues, and there have been numerous examples of laws and policies that have been adopted and taken into effect by government. We have supported a lot of associations that have advocated to pass bills into laws and policies at Parliament. And next to that, we have done a lot of awareness of the importance of advocacy that is now being a sustainable element in many associations, that advocacy is business advocacy is the primary objective of an association, and is important to sustain it in the future. And last but not least, we feel there is now a clear trend towards closing the gap between the gap in terms of dialogue between private sector and public sector at district, regional and national level.
Looking at the role that BUSAC has played in the past in supporting the Ghanaian economy, what would you say are some of the major setbacks that you've experienced?
Normally, when you have a new government that is coming into effect, you need for ministers to take time to understand the importance of changing a policy or bring a new bill, and the same at parliament level. So when reshuffling of ministries is happening, we see that there are delays in our advocacy process. An advocacy process normally takes up to a year, but in many instances there have been delays up to 1.5 to 2 years because of the fact that a new ministry that is set up or a new government that is coming in needs time to understand and get into the details and the needs of changing a particular policy. These are the major setbacks we had. At national level, we have experienced that a lot of focus has been put on dialogue, and we see that this lack of dialogue is being narrowed down. So we see that as a result more than a setback. Yeah.
Has there been any instances whereby there was a change of government, and therefore some of these initiatives actually came to a halt because of the change of government?
Yes, I mean, we normally seek to support projects and advocacy projects that are in line with the priorities of the private sector, but also in line with government priorities. We have had like a number of advocacy issues that have been raised by private sector alone without our support that took like 10 years to come into effect. But through our support and through the constructive approach, within a year, the law has been taken into effect or approved by the Parliament. We normally see that some of the advocacy issues can be a bit complicated, very technical, and need more time, and that is why they stall at parliamentary level. But most of the time, it's a question of time and evolvement of a particular advocacy issues that takes place that makes it happen into reality.
Talking about setbacks, has there been any instances where funds have been abused when disbursed, especially in line with governments?
All right. Normally, we provide funds to the private sector directly. That is our mandate. In terms of abuses of funds, we have control mechanisms that we have installed to prevent things from happening. Now, there have been maybe some few cases where there have been some inconsistencies in the reporting of documents that we had to chase, and we had to make sure through our control processes that they are being in line with our expectations. In terms of abuse, we have come into a very few out of the 800 projects. Maybe we have 4 or 5 of them we had to close because they were not reaching the expected results, but not necessarily mismanaging the project.
So when that happens, what exactly do you do? Do they have to, for instance, if someone applies for a grant for a particular project, especially let's say in line with the private sector, and then it doesn't go, probably the project that the funds were supposed to be used for was not used for its intended purpose. How do you go about it? After disbursing, let's say, the first tranche of it, what's the next step?
Oh, so after the first disbursement, we have a pool of monitors that are monitoring the process and monitoring the activities to make sure that the funds are not used for other purposes. So we don't have situations where funds have been used for other purposes.
Okay. Let's also talk about the fact that you have been a business consultant before. Yes. And you've done a great job. I've gone through your profile, and I'm sure viewers can attest to that as well. How would you assess SMEs in Ghana?
Well, I believe SMEs in Ghana are the backbone of the Ghanaian economy. Okay. Once they take off, they can really move the economy forward and strive for generating employment and revenue in Ghana. I see a lot of SMEs driven by entrepreneurs, which is a lovely thing. But I also see challenges. Okay. And there are two levels of challenges. One, which is the external environment of the SME related to the business environment in itself. There have been so many challenges in terms of procedures, registration, in terms of energy, access to infrastructure, in terms of the ones that are established in the regions. These challenges, they survive, but we need SMEs to grow. We need SMEs to have the right business environment, the right infrastructure to grow, not to survive. The other challenge is mostly related to their own way of managing their businesses. And there's a lot of need for them to understand how to use technology, whether it's the software, the social media technology for marketing their products, how to manage their own company, their own enterprise in terms of governance, in terms of profitability and productivity. But we see in this new government some activities that are geared towards improving the productivity of SMEs and trying to help them in this direction, and at the same time improving the business environment of SMEs.
So you rightly made mention of the fact that, well, there are economic challenges that could affect the way SMEs operate in the country, and then some of the challenges are challenges that are created by these SMEs. And your profession has also given you exposure to other countries as well. What are some of the things that you think that we can, or SMEs in Ghana can learn from, or best practices they can learn from other African countries in terms of doing business?
Well, I believe that the ease of doing business is important. Okay. For SMEs to thrive. I see that compared to other African countries, Ghanaians are very entrepreneurial. And they are very creative. They need the structure and the discipline to move forward, but also the business environment to be eased for them to thrive. They also need to have a better exposure to foreign investors that can help them, so they can use these foreign investors as a platform, a technological platform, in terms of developing their own business. The potential is there, it needs to be developed.
Is it to say that we haven't, or government has not really created a conducive environment for SMEs operating in the country?
I believe that the Ghanaian, the government of Ghana is doing a lot of measures, but there are many challenges that need to be met up, that need to be improved. We can see the improvement now in the access to energy. We can see that there have been many throughout the first year of government here, there has been a lot of initiatives to improve the business environment, but there's a lot of things that have to be done. There is a need, for example, to have an SME policy. There is a need to have that can turn into an SME law. There are, for example, some laws on intellectual property, some laws on insolvency need also to be established. That is to put the right structure for the SME to operate.
Most often, we've had people say that we have good laws, but implementation is a problem. Do you agree with this assertion?
Yes, in certain areas, we see from our perspective in supporting private sector organizations, we see that laws have been applied, been passed, but in terms of implementation, the law is not being implemented. And this is why we support initiatives in terms of getting LIs developed, and also pushing for certain implementation measures to be done, whether on the private sector side or government side. We shouldn't forget the fact that government is not there to do everything. The private sector has also to take its part of responsibility and to comply with the standards that are being developed by government and agreed upon, and in order to push forward. And this is mainly, I believe, the responsibility of business associations to disseminate these types of information to their members and make sure their members also comply with whatever agreement or whatever policy has been passed or whatever bill has been passed into a law.
Would you then say that the private sector or businesses operating in Ghana are asking for too much?
No, I can't say that. No, I can't say that. But I would say that in it's a sectoral thing. Certain sectors expect a lot from government in terms of assistance, help, and sometimes financial help. But it is asking for too much. I think it's important for the private sector to have its own share of responsibility, given the fact that once government says, now I've eased your environment, go ahead and be productive, go ahead and compete. I think that is an important thing to take as share of the responsibility. The government's responsibility is to create the proper environment, but the driving seat is for private sector to thrive and get and be productive and compete.
What would be your advice to businesses operating in the country? And what also are your expectations for 2018 in terms of the Ghanaian environment?
So let me start with the second part of the question, because that's an important one, is the one we're working mostly with. We are seeing very clear signs of constructive dialogue between private sector and government on easing the business of SMEs and easing the business of the private sector in general. And we see this will have a trickle-down effect. It's a question of time. But we're very pleased with this positive atmosphere and dialogue. Our help is into formulating policies, supporting business organizations, formulating positions and formulating their own way they see the policies and the bills have to be put. And conducting consultative process, a dialogue process with government as in to finalize and have these things approved. What I would advise the private sector in general is to unite their voice in Ghana, have one common position as to what is it the private sector wants and which way to go. We feel sometimes there are many different voices that are articulated, and this in a way could be confusing for government to understand. So what is it the private sector would like to do? So that is my advice, to unite your voices, pull your acts together and be clear in formulating what you want. One of the elements I think is important is to discuss what does it take for a Ghanaian industry to be competitive. Well, we need initiatives in terms of, from the private sector, to have an open discussion on what does it take. What does it take for government, but also what does it take for the private sector to do, to be competitive and to go up the ladder of competitiveness compared to the cost of doing business by the World Bank or the World Economic Forum. There are ladders. So once through the last years, Ghana has been falling down that ladder. We need Ghana to come up in a competitive position, compared to other countries that are really moving fast. Ghana needs to move fast, even faster, to catch up.
Indeed, there's more room for us in terms of trying to catch up in terms of economic development, and therefore government will have to create a conducive environment. The private sector equally has a role to play in this growth of the Ghanaian economy. You're watching CEO's Chair on BTA and GNTV UK. We'll take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. You're welcome back from that break. You're watching CEO's Chair, and as I said earlier, you're watching on BTA and GNTV UK. Let's acknowledge our sponsors, that GTP New Style, for this particular fabric. Thanks to GTP New Style, and also thanks to Jine Jakoma for the costume as well. We spoke about BUSAC, but this time around, the part I love the most, where we tend to talk more about the personality itself. Tell us, Nicholas, if you're to give, let's say, a brief about yourself or describe who you are, what would you say?
Oh, all right. Humbly speaking then, well, I've been working a lot through my career on private sector organizations and private sector in general, and interacting with governments on the ease of doing business. Okay. My passion is to help countries develop and have a secure employment rate that is going on, and growth of their economy. I have been traveling in a lot of countries as management consultant and advising on SMEs policies. From a personal note, I have 3 wonderful children. Okay. Studying in Denmark, reaching university levels already, and I love jazz music, and I do play a lot of tennis. So that is my passion, my second passion. I've been working in Africa for many years. My first encounter was in Ghana was in 1995, and I love working with Ghanaians, and they have such a wonderful smile, despite the hardships they have gone through.
But tell us, what brought you to Ghana? What brought you to Ghana in 1995?
Working as a management consultant, I had missions to do in enhancing and developing businesses and partnerships between Ghanaian and Danish companies. I myself, I come from Denmark. And so all through my career, I've been working in countries like India, Russia, Poland, Vietnam, and many African countries, mostly East African countries. And 5 years ago, I have been working on a lot of advocacy projects, managing advocacy projects, programs, and there was an opportunity for me to come to Ghana and develop the advocacy issues or the advocacy program, business advocacy in Ghana. And this is why I believed it was a good opportunity for me to settle down somewhere, because traveling extensively was a bit tiring in the long run.
Can I also take the opportunity to humbly ask you to just walk us through how it was like when you were growing up as a child? And this program seeks to inspire a lot more young people. Most people believe that, well, depending on because of where I'm coming from, I don't think that there are other opportunities available for me. I just have to be within my comfort zone. So we want to humbly ask if you can just walk us through that briefly. Yeah,
I mean, my childhood hasn't been too easy. My father was always putting strong demands on me to be better, to improve, and to be on my own. I had a lot of passion to learn, and I wanted to be a doctor, but then all of a sudden I changed my ideas, wanted to study economy. I've been pretty much on my own as a student, no support from anybody. I started from zero, practically, and it was very challenging. But when you believe you can get somewhere, you will reach the point, but just take it easy.
Is it because your dad actually placed a lot of, actually pushed you harder for you to be independent? Was that the reason?
Yes, my father had only the good intentions. Maybe he was from the old school that believed that by throwing me up in the pool without learning how to swim, I would start learning how to swim. That was the main reason. In a way, I'm very thankful for him because he learned me how to be independent at a very early stage of my life, and not just be depending on my family or my parents economically.
You made mention of the fact that it was indeed a challenging moment for you growing up as a child. What kept you going, even in the midst of challenges?
The dream.
And what was that dream?
The dream was to build a home, to find peace, and to have a career in my life. And to pursue something I'd really want to, without really knowing at that time what I wanted to be. But that was the main drive I had. I was a dreamer.
Have you achieved your dream so far?
Oh, yes, pretty much.
To a larger extent?
Pretty much, yes. So what I can say is, in terms of, well, I have 3 wonderful kids. I've reached a point in time. It's not about being wealthy, but it's about being wealthy interiorly.
Okay.
It's about reaching a point in career where you feel happy with what you're doing. And the job I have is a wonderful job. The exposure I have with government officials, with people from the business community, top-ranking business community, is very motivating. And for me, it's a passion to see that I'm contributing in developing a country's economy, no matter how little it is.
So you've had opportunities, and from what you're saying, I want to deduce that you actually never let go of any opportunity that came your way. Would you say the same for young people or younger generations this time around?
Yes, I mean, for the younger generation, I mean, it's a question of motivation. It's a question of trying to focus not on all types of activities and all types of dreams, but try to focus on the dream you believe in and hold on to it.
But is that what you're seeing currently among the younger generation?
Yes, among the younger generation, I see a lot of young Ghanaians who throw themselves in different projects and different opportunities they see, but by spreading their energy, they're not getting anywhere.
Okay.
So my advice would be just focus on one area where you believe you can grow.
Do you believe in our academic system?
Probably
maybe our educational system, if I should say.
Yes. I have been invited to lecture a few times at the University of Legon, okay. University of Ghana, whether it's at the bachelor level or at the master's level. I can see from the MBA level that the people who are working, the students, are very motivated. At the bachelor level, the younger generation, they are very shy. And my advice to the system would be try to motivate the students not just to accept anything the teacher is saying, but also to question some of the opinions the lecturer have and challenge the lecturer's opinions, because that will lead to learning more and researching more and leading to the growth of the personality of the students. But I believe that the Ghana has a high level, educational level, compared to other countries, other African countries.
Let's talk about, you have core values. How do you ensure that organizations, for instance, your organization, would align with your core values for you to derive some form of satisfaction? Yeah,
core values are extremely important in any organization. The way I do about it is to formulate my core values, or the core values of our fund, very clearly. Okay. Very clearly, and to have it reflected in every activity my team is carrying out, so that in any activity they are carrying out, they can see the core value reflected there, and it's like a way of making it operational, a core value operational. That's how we do it.
But do you see this replicating, because you've had the opportunity to interact with other organizations, do you see people, other companies imbibing their core values or making sure that the core values of employees are integrated into the core values of the organization?
Yes, I see that. where companies have core values that are clearly being applied or being followed by the team tend to be much more successful than the ones where the staff doesn't really understand the core value of a particular company.
Moving away from that, leadership or leaders in most organizations are confronted with numerous challenges. You are a leader in diverse ways. What would you say are the biggest challenges confronting leaders in Africa?
In Africa, the largest challenge is for a leader is the motivation of the team. And within motivation, you have the delegation of work.
Okay.
I see in Africa there's a tendency to micromanage and to control from leaders' sides. You have to be able to provide the right motivational factors by letting go. It doesn't mean you don't control, but you have to give room for the staff or the team to grow in terms of making their own decisions at certain levels.
But most people or most managers probably feel creating such environments, sometimes employees tend to abuse it. How do they ensure that even though you're creating a very flexible environment for people to operate, employees do not abuse this atmosphere that is being created by leaders?
Yes, but that is a balance you have to strike between controlling and delegating.
Okay.
And you can put control processes and ask the team to follow those control processes. So you don't just let them follow the processes. You also have to make sure that these control processes are followed. It doesn't mean you don't delegate your work to them. It doesn't mean that you don't motivate them to, on their own initiatives, do activities.
But going forward, if you take a look at the Ghanaian environment, what do you think? For instance, we're operating in a system whereby people come to work. Let's say the work system is not like other countries, not outside Africa, where people can work late into the night, even in the corporate organization, they run shifts and all that. How would you assess the Ghanaian environment? Are we really, most people would say, again, that they are working hard, but they are not really seeing it reflecting in their lives. Is it the kind of system we are operating? If that's the case, what can we do to also make sure that employees get a better living? Well,
from our own experience, I see sometimes staff working hard, but it doesn't mean they're working smart. What is important for the staff is to understand that there are shortcuts and there are things that they can do in smarter ways that still makes their life and their working life easier. Working hard is not always the best solution, and working hard is good. I appreciate that, but I would prefer team members to be working in a smarter way. As to the flexibility, we all have our social life, we have our private life. Some people, they get kids, so the kids are small, somebody has to take care of them, they come a bit late, they leave a bit earlier. As long as the result is achieved, I don't mix with how the team is working.
How would you assess Ghanaian workers in Ghana?
That's a very general question. I think I see many different types.
Are they working smart?
Yes.
Or they're working hard?
I see many different types of workers. They're the ones that would just work 9 to 5 and that's it. And for them, work is not as important as all their private life. I see others, and I see a new generation of young people who want to take responsibility,
okay,
who are dedicated to their work because they see it as a passion. And I also see a younger generation that is motivated enough to strike a balance with their private life. And I think it's very important.
Okay, so it's important for you to strike a balance between your private life and then your career as well. On that note, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the CEO's chair. You're welcome back from that break. I'm having a very fruitful conversation. I'm sure you're equally enjoying the conversation as well. You can join us and send us your comments on our Facebook page. That's www.facebook.com/business television Africa. Let's continue our conversation. Maybe probably we'll backtrack a bit to leadership. What would you say are some of the most frequently mistakes being made by leaders?
Well, from what I see is a lot related to the lack of vision. Many leaders lack vision. Running a company is not just running a company. You need to clearly have a dream that you want to pursue, a place you want to go to, and a way to get from A to Z, and communicate that very clearly to the team that is behind you. Another challenge I also see is the lack of delegation to the team. I see many heads of companies that want to have all the control in their hands, and that creates a lack of motivation among the staff, and that is also triggering a low productivity in the company. A leader has to show the way forward, and he shouldn't be there pushing everybody to go there, but he should be motivating his team to go along with him.
So what are some of the traits then that you see that derails the careers of leaders?
Well, sometimes lack of control, lack of enforcing the control processes leads to mistakes that are done, and leads to economic deficits in terms of profitability. That is a major challenge I see in a lot of companies. You need to keep an eye on the books. You need to keep an eye that the control processes are followed. And that can be done by monitoring, by doing some auditing from time to time and see checks and balances are okay. Some leaders are too busy with the daily life, pushing forward, doing the sales, doing the marketing, but the finances are always very important to keep an eye on, because those are the ones that will make the company move on.
Most people are trying to better off their lives by furthering their education just to take up some managerial position or leadership position. What would be your advice to someone who wants to take up the role of a leader for the first time?
Being a leader for the first time is a challenge. Is a challenge because everything is new. You also have to deal with employees that are maybe very experienced and they know how to deal with their own bosses. The way to deal with it, from my personal advice, from my personal experience, is to keep the ears open, to have good listening skills. Listen to what the staff or what the team is saying. You don't always, as a new leader, have a solution, because the challenges can be greater than your experience. But you can get the solutions from the people around you, and that is very important.
So then what can a leader do to ensure that he or she grows and develops properly as a leader?
Wow. What is extremely important is, first of all, as I mentioned, the listening skills have to be there, but also to build the proper team around you, a team you can trust, a team that is willing to back you up. And sometimes you run organizations where you don't have the adequate people. You need to make hard decisions. You need the appropriate people in the right positions, and that is very important because you depend on them.
But there are times that as a leader you might be working with people who also do not understand your vision, or not understand per se, but they tend not to appreciate your long-term vision or goal. How do you manage? Probably these individuals are very good, but you find it very difficult to come along with them. As a leader, how best should you handle such situation?
Oh, that is a very interesting perspective, and I've also encountered experiences like that. especially when I'm being appointed as a leader of a team or an organization that is already established. Everybody's there, a new guy is coming, or who does he think he is? We know exactly what we're doing, don't come and question us, oh, the processes are there, and we always been doing it this way, so why should we change? Those challenges are difficult to cope with for a leader on his own. What I normally would advise is to have somebody from outside, a facilitator, and taking the organization to a different environment, a relaxing environment, and doing some team building.
Okay.
And the team building enhances the mutual understanding of the leader, of how every single team member is, and at the same time it enhances the understanding of the team about what the leader expects from them and what type of person he or she is.
Organizational culture, I believe, will play a key role in what you're saying. But if you take the Ghanaian environment or the business environment in Ghana, do you see most leaders being taken through this process for the team members to appreciate that, okay, we're bringing on board a new leader, and therefore the person would need to understand the environment and understand the kind of people he or she is operating, what he or she would be working with. Do you see that in the Ghanaian system?
I see it more in the well-established companies.
Okay.
And that is being applied. Where human resource is being provided the right focus. But as for the smaller SMEs or maybe entrepreneurial companies, well, this remains to be done.
In that case, if you find yourself in the midst of young leaders, what would be your advice to them?
Well, my advice would be, first of all, listen to your team. Listen to what your staff is looking for,
okay,
and how they work, and build on it. Don't go around playing the leader. There is no reason to say, I'm the boss, because everybody knows you're the boss. Try to get at their level and come up with improvements so that they feel you're a team player, but not the boss. I think this is very important.
Is it that easy to do that?
No. I still have challenges myself. But I think it's an experience in life that, from what I see, is yielding the best results. And I do believe where I am sitting now, I have a dream team that really, I appreciate their efforts. I appreciate their motivational level.
So if one should find him or herself in an environment where it's difficult for you to cooperate with your team members, how is the best option for you to just quit, or how do you go about it?
As a leader, you're not supposed to quit. As a leader, you're supposed to get the results that you've been asked to do. Now, whether these results require changing a couple of members because maybe they are being stubborn or unwilling to cooperate, you would have numerous dialogues with staff, with the team, and making them understand this is where we want to go, this is what I expect from you in terms of results and performance. Well, if these are not met, then you have to give them a warning, and that should lead to some drastic solutions. But a leader should not quit. A leader should be there to get the results that is expected either from his board or from his own director.
Nicholas, tell us, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, let's talk about the 5 years first. But the 5 years, I mean, by that time, my position would be terminated here, and
okay,
this is the last phase of the fund, the BUSAC fund, and I'm happy to say that because we're working towards sustainability. The cooperation between Denmark and the government of Ghana is moving from aid to trade, and this is what we're trying also to do over the next 3 years. Beyond the 3 years, well, I love Ghana and I love working with Ghanaians, so I'll still be around.
As what? As a business consultant?
Well, that would be in terms of as an advisor, as a consultant, whatever contribution I can come to Ghana, I'll be here.
So would you want to work with a Ghanaian business or a Ghanaian company, or you would want to establish your own business after this phase is over?
Well, the options are open. The options are open. But if I have to work for a Ghanaian enterprise, whether it's my own or somebody else's, then I'll be really in the same line of challenges that any other Ghanaian enterprise will be having. So I'll be working on easing the business environment before getting there.
Okay, but let's get to appreciate. What would be your final comment to entrepreneurs, to leaders, and probably managers of the Ghanaian economy?
Yeah, well, I have been a strong supporter of entrepreneurs, very strong one. I believe the entrepreneurs are the ones that thrive in terms of motivation, visions, ideas. My advice in general to entrepreneurs is follow your dreams is a wonderful thing. But at a certain time, you will be growing to a level where you would need more people around you and people you trust. So you'll have to let go of that type of control. You can't be everywhere, do everything yourself. So try to delegate to others to help you build up and help your entrepreneur company become a bigger one, a growing enterprise.
And then to leaders and managers of the Ghanaian economy?
Oh, leaders. Well, I think it's important to have a vision of where you want to go. I believe it's very important to have the right team around you, a team that believes in you, believes in the moves you're doing, the actions you're taking, the decisions you're making, and at the same time, reciprocally, you believe that they will help you reach the results you want to achieve.
So we'd like to say thank you, Nicholas Gebara, for your time and speaking to us on pressing issues. You've informed us a lot or educated us a lot on what entrepreneurs need to do, and if you're a manager or a leader, what a leader is supposed to do to ensure that wherever you find yourself, you see some form of growth happening in your institution. Thanks so much once again.
Thank you.
So I've been speaking to Nicholas Gebara. He happens to be the fund manager for BUSAC Fund, and we've been talking about BUSAC and also his personal career as an individual. So try as much as possible. If you're a young entrepreneur, don't kill that dream, push harder. Definitely, as I keep telling you, probably is my slogan this time around, that you would see success coming your way if you don't give up in life. Thanks so much for joining us on CEO's Chair. You've been watching it on BTA and GNTV. To our sponsors, GTP and Jine Jakuma, we say thanks so much for sponsoring this program. My name is Winifred Ampia. Do enjoy the rest of our programs until we meet next week.